look at this thing shows.
So we'll move it over here. There.
That's Dan's stuffy that he can't go anywhere without.
My plushie.
Hi, I'm Nellie.
Hi, I'm Dan.
God, I look good.
Camera puts on 27 pounds.
I know, I'm so thin that I look really good.
Hold on.
God, I don't. Wait, you can't listen to
I know,
it?
I just wanted to hear if the volume was working.
Okay, we
might have to start this one again.
We have to talk loudly.
We do have to talk loudly. Okay, stop. Let's start over.
No, we're not stopping. Just go. It's fine. We're live. This is real, baby.
All right.
Oh my God, one person's watching. Oh, it's you. Oh, that's funny. Look who's watching.
That's great. Let's start over again.
No, just start that one over. Because that'll be the podcast. And this is the Facebook Live. Facebook Live is real, man. We're real. And we got one fan watching.
Who's me?
Dan Edwards. Ophi's watching too.
All right. We are live on the podcast, on the audio.
No, this is Facebook Live.
Well, I know, but there's also a podcast being recorded now, too. So, welcome to Happily DeMarried. I hope you can hear this. Dan Edwards, who's watching. So today, we're going to discuss... Would you like to hear what we're going to discuss?
Yes.
We're going to discuss self-doubt. Self-doubt. It's kind of it's a pretty common experience to feel at least a bit of self-doubt when you're divorced or going through the divorce process. At least that's been my experience. And
I haven't experienced that yet.
I just came through a week where I was given ample doses of like self-doubt boosters as my children fought with each other, and I was getting yelled at from 3,000 miles away by my ex-wife for not doing the right things at the right time when people were sick or when riots broke out. So anyway, so self-doubt is one of those things that plagues you or plagues me from time to time when I'm trying to navigate life as a parent with kids half the time and work and other responsibilities. So that's all I had to say about self-doubt.
That's it?
Hold on, I'm looking to see. I had some other ideas.
Well, what other people say about it? We'll just pretend we're them.
So no, I mean, it's very challenging when you are when you're going through the divorce process. You know, some people have varying degrees of ease in kind of arriving to decisions to get divorced, but the process itself is long and arduous. And there are going to be times when you're like, Jesus, what the hell am I thinking? And after you go through the divorce process and you're divorced and you're dealing with being a parent, there's so much room for self-doubt, and you don't have somebody necessarily to bounce your thoughts off of. So all you kind of got is yourself as a sounding board. I'm a shitty sounding board because my response to my questions about am I doing the right thing is invariably no, you're fucking up. You're an idiot. So that's a really tough kind of voice to have in the back of your head, and it requires a lot of effort to give yourself a little bit of leeway to say, you know what, sometimes the best you can do is all you can do, and most of the time the best you can do is enough. Sometimes it's not, but more often than not it is. It may not be beautiful, it may not be elegant, but it gets you by.
See, my thing with self-doubt is if you let that in, then it leads to self-loathing. Like, I feel like self-doubt is like the little like twinkle gateway into really despising myself and everything. And so, you know, I did read a book on this, and I can't always do it, but it was called The 7-Day Mental Diet, and it just says when negative thoughts come in, the whole book is like really short. But when negative thoughts come in, you just say, I'm not going to think about that. Like, it's that simple to say, to explain, but it's really not simple to do. But the only person who's doubting you is yourself. And so if you doubt yourself, then your kids doubt you.
Well, I mean, actually, that's a good point, is that the only person who's being self-critical about you is you. But that doesn't mean that you're not getting outside signals that tell you that you're probably right to be self-doubting. Work could be going in the shitter. You could be getting signals from your kids that you suck. You could be getting signals from your ex that you suck. You could be in a fight with your current girlfriend or mate. And that's what happens. I think you're right. I think it's like self-doubt's kind of the gateway. When you listen to the self-doubt and you don't kick it out, you're inviting it as it is the opening. It's the initial opening. So when other stuff starts coming in, it feels like piling on, and it gets harder and harder to kind of knock that stuff away.
But sometimes you're just wrong.
About whatever you're doubting about yourself.
No. So say you're like, oh, what should I do? And you say, I'm yelling at you from 3,000 miles away. I'm probably right. But I'm just saying, instead of taking stuff personally and being like, oh my God, I can't make decisions and I doubt myself, that there's a way to be like, oh my God, I'm wrong. And I say that a lot to myself. And I do, I bounce a lot of stuff off you. I send you a text and go, oh my God, I just flipped out about the kids all the time. Like, should I do this? I bounce a lot of stuff off you. And sometimes my reaction and my decisions are just wrong. And so I think self-doubt sometimes is a gift, because what you can do, instead of letting it in and just being by yourself, you reach out to someone. I mean, I have friends that I go, Jesus, am I thinking in the right way, or am I just wrong? And sometimes it's being like, sorry, I was wrong. And that's what Dan and I do a lot. They were away for a week and it was hard. Gus got sick and had to go to a clinic, and then the riots broke out.
Yeah, we were in Nicaragua and the government started. Yeah, it was a mess. And from 3,000 miles away, it was probably scarier than it was where I was.
Right, and so
there was just a lot of vomit and diarrhea.
I would send like bitchy texts that were probably interpreted as way more bitchy than they were. Just supposed to be a little bit bitchy.
Well, but it's also under the stress of the moment. But that's like when I'm sitting there stressing, getting through all this shit and hearing it from 3,000 miles away, it's like, this is fucking helpful. But I understand too, when you're 3,000 miles away, it's super stressful. You don't know what's happening on the ground.
But also, you might be wrong and I might be wrong.
I acknowledge my wrongness. There were parts of that I handled poorly, and but I think that's actually kind of the first step. When you realize you are feeling that kind of sense of self-doubt, the first thing to do is to step back from it to the extent that you can and analyze it a little bit. Say, is this something that's legitimate? Should I be doubting myself about this issue? I mean, am I really making shitty decisions here? Or am I in the right and I can kind of move forward with that? So you really have to kind of understand what the cause of that is. Like, what's the basis of it, and get to the root of it. And once you know that, you can either move forward with a little bit more confidence, A, that you are kind of right. You're wrong to be doubting yourself. Or B, you need to change course. You need to think about it. You need to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I'm fucking up. I'm making a mistake.
See, I think you're way too hard on yourself. I just reach out to other people, and if I mess up, I go, shit, sorry. Like, I make like really kind of trigger rash decisions that I shouldn't. And I've gotten a little better at taking more time. Probably not with you, because I'm so comfortable. I know. That's
the often wrong and never in doubt. No, I mean, it's true. You shoot from the hip, but you're very sure with your decisions. And it feels like that's one of the issues when you're dealing with somebody who is confident in their decision making, whether they're right or wrong. If you hear somebody saying something with confidence, it's easier to believe it and take it to heart. So this is what makes this sort of self-doubt stuff complicated.
Yeah, I should be gentler.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying this isn't specifically about you, but I think from an individual perspective, all you can do is affect how you handle something. So if you're feeling self-doubt, you need to figure out how to navigate that so that you don't let it kind of become a bigger thing and turn into self-loathing or like criticism that's unwarranted.
Right.
I mean, it's self-doubt's probably just a signal that you got something to acknowledge, recognize, learn a little bit about.
See, I always just talk to other people, and when I have self-doubt,
I think that's right. I think that's a brilliant response. You're better at that than I am. I don't talk to anybody.
I know, you stew in your own stew, and then you make a whole stew, and you're like, I'm awful.
I'm building my tumor with my self-loathing.
Oh my God, I about the tumor you were building. You've been building that since we got married.
That's why I've gained 50 pounds.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, you can get rid of that tumor, man.
No, I don't have insurance for it.
You know what? You got to find something outside of yourself that's bigger than you. Even if it's just a tree you sit under and go, damn. Seriously, if I sit in my own head and think about it, if I can talk to someone, then I can go, not that I'm trying to share my burden, but I'm like, am I wrong? And the best thing, and you said it today, and my friend says it all the time, like, if you go through your day and people piss you off and people do this and people do that, and you say, you just breathe and go, they're doing the best they can. Like, if I sat there and looked at my kids, I mean, they're not adults. They're going to piss us off and have tantrums and do, I mean, it's typical. But if you can just sit there and bring yourself back to when they were teenagers, or bring yourself back there and go, okay, they're doing the best they can with the brains they have, that where the frontal lobes are like little dried up horrible raisins right now that can't make any logical decision wherever, and they're just doing the best they can. They really
but
are.
I think that is a good kind of fallback, is to assume that people are doing the best they can. Now, that's not always the case, and particularly in a divorce situation, you may be in a more adversarial and combative kind of divorce situation.
You
where
might
somebody,
be a total dick.
where somebody's actively trying to make your life harder, and that's a different situation. You can't kind of assume best intention there, or at least not all the time. Which makes it trickier. So that's why you have to be able to rely on your own radar.
See, the people I want to listen to this and do it are those people you think you'll never get through to, that someone's like, oh, you know, I talk to people about happily demarried all the time, and they're like, oh, you and Dan are weird and you get along. And it's like, it's a choice. It's a daily choice to say, like, there's a load of shit that we can both list about each other that's egregious and, but you know what? I want the people to listen to it, those people that you think that we will never get through to. You know, if you're a dick and you're listening to this, hallelujah. Keep being a dick, but at the very least, you're listening to something to try to change the way you think. And change the way you think about your ex. They're like, I don't know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a kid. I don't know what it's like to be a divorced man. I really don't. Your life seems pretty easy to me. Chicks just show up at your door and throw themselves at you.
And that's easy?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the truth, but that doesn't sound
Oh my God, it's so the truth.
Anyway.
But
I mean, I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that Nellie and I don't always get along. Typically we do. I think what we have the advantage of is that we know to walk away from each other before we get really fucking angry with each other.
But even if we do get really angry with each other, it's a fight, and it doesn't mean...
we also have the reservoir of knowledge that neither one of us is trying to fuck the other over. We're not. We just don't do that. It's never been our MO. So that's easier than a lot of people have it. So I think, I don't want to be too much of a Pollyanna. I do think that this stuff can reach an equilibrium even in really difficult divorce situations, because what you have to do every single time you get into a situation where you just want to strangle the other person is you got to look at your kids and say, how am I going to handle this in the way that's in their best interest?
But those are the people I want to get to.
I know,
you feel like you could never get to them. And
maybe you can't, but maybe you can. But the idea is that if you look at your kids, the answer is never going to be, the best thing I can do right now is tear my ex apart and tear them down, particularly in front of the kids. The answer is always going to be, the best thing for you to do right now is to step back, take a breather, acknowledge what you own, and own what you've done that isn't right. Acknowledge the fact that the other party may be fucking up, but they're probably doing the best they can, hopefully. You have to have a little bit of faith that people aren't, some people will go out of their way to make somebody else's life difficult. Hopefully you're not in that kind of a situation. But if you are, particularly if you're the person making life difficult for somebody else, you stop. It's easier to
or
not do
if you
that.
don't stop, because you can't, just stop doing it in front of the kids.
Right.
I know there are, and everyone's heard this, but I know horror stories about what people do or say about the other parent to their kids. And I remember writing about this when you and I were were working on an article together that, like, that kid is half of them, you know? So it's like, you know when someone used to shit on my brother, and, like, I can rag on him, and I can be mean to my brother, and I can do that, but you can't.
Right.
And I feel like the kids, they do that too. Everyone has that feeling where it's like, hey, my brother. And then if someone insults my brother, I'm like cutting them. Even if I'm mad at my brother, I'm like, don't crap on my brother. So that's how I feel the kids feel about when we, you know, if they come in and they say, Dad, you know, did this and was late or did it. I don't join them. If they're pissed at me, Dan doesn't join them in being mad at me and being like, oh, here's an opportunity to gain one up on Dan. Like, I am constantly, even if I believe it or not, constantly either keeping my mouth shut or defending their dad. And it doesn't have to happen a lot, but I always, I don't know, I always sing your praises. I really do.
Yeah,
because
I do the same. Because
they're half of you. They don't want you to be, they don't want me to think you're a dick, because then they're like, oh my God, I'm really like him in a lot of ways. Am I a dick? Mm.
Well, it's that. It's just, it basically undermines any credibility you have when you start doing that, because all of a sudden it becomes you against them situation. And kids are not idiots. They recognize the fact when there's animosity, and they'll also leverage it, but that's not healthy for them. You don't want to create that dynamic where the kids are leveraging one parent against another. That's really unhealthy for them from like a purely like from their psyche. It's really unhealthy to be trying to put parents against each other. You don't want your kids to grow up with that kind of dynamic. My philosophy has always been my kids deserve to think their mom is brilliant. Even if I'm not thinking that,
Even if they think it, they should know it.
they'll figure out the truth soon enough. But I think that's every kid's right. Let kids.
Gus asked me what I got on my SATs.
Did you say what's an SAT?
I had to explain to him what one was, because... oh, damn.
So, anyway, I'm trying to think if I have anything more to add to this. I do.
Good luck
I
to
want
you,
to. No, I
divorced
want to reiterate what Nellie said. That I think that self-doubt is one of those things that can really be knocked down pretty quickly by people who care about you and know you. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm bad about that. I do not reach out well.
See, I even reach out to you. You probably don't even know how much you've done for me, but I was sitting there crapping on myself about work and this and that, and you were like, reach out to me. You were like...
No, I don't want you to use it against me.
No, it was like... it was very helpful. You just said, oh, you're talented and you're so hot.
That might have been somebody else.
No, you did say something really thoughtful about my...
But I do think that there's a lot of strength to be gained from... I mean, your friends know who you are. They know you're not a piece of shit. And if they're real friends, they'll tell you when you are being a piece of shit, but that's not, generally speaking...
Yeah, just because you act like a piece of shit doesn't mean you are a piece of shit.
We aren't the worst thing we've ever done. Or at least I hope not. So, you know, use your friends, leverage that, but I guess that's the kind of takeaway from this is, first of all, take a close look. When you're feeling doubtful about something you are doing or something you've done, step back from it, take a look at it, determine if it's got credibility, if it's a legitimate gripe against yourself. If it isn't, dismiss it, push it away, have a little peace. If it is, then start thinking about how you can change it, talk to people, read books, but don't let that stuff pile on, because it will.
And don't use your kids, man. They're already messed up enough in their brain. They don't need to hear your problems. Not to be like, oh, we should hide ourselves from our kids, but man.
And plus, as they get older, they start to turn against you. So you're going to need these
They haven't turned against me. They turned against you.
You should go to a third world country. They're joining the militias trying to take me down.
Yeah, they totally love me. They never complain about me. Okay, I'm going to push finish. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Oh, wait, who's our watching? Oh, Dan Edwards. That's
cool.
me. Thanks, Dan.